with Reuters. Ambassador Burt, your statement says that, and I think you said that you're calling for strong commitments to be made by the 47 leaders participating in the Nuclear Security Summit next week. I just wondered if you could be a little more specific. Give us some ideas of some things that you'd like to see them do next week that would be meaningful, and that people couldn't just say, oh, well, that's all just a bunch of talk. Nothing's going to happen. I'd also love to hear anything more that you want to say about how some kind of multilateral forum could be set up on nukes, the countries that you named earlier. You know, I immediately think, well, gee, would they come? Would they come? Anything more that you want to say about, like, you know, getting China, Israel, Pakistan all in one room talking about this? That would be interesting.
I'll come back to that, but I want to ask Valerie, who's really the expert on the nuclear security summit and the loose nukes issue, to address that.
I'm not the expert on the summit, I'll say that, but what I can speak to is my experience as a CIA covert operations officer, and having looked at the nexus of terrorism and nuclear weapons. It's absolutely terrifying. And I'll just speak for myself personally. As I said in my statement, when I worked for the CIA, I thought this was the most important issue right there. And I still believe that, but I have evolved my position into thinking, you know, the really only way that we can proceed is, in fact, draining the swamp. Because it is such a different environment. Her Majesty spoke about the Cold War and a childhood of thinking about nuclear explosion. Very different today. That was very much a bipolar world, and it was much more contained. Now, truly the genie is out of the bottle. And when you have the possibility that terrorists, which the film speaks to, stealing a bomb or buying a bomb, that then changes the entire calculus of how to pursue this. And for me, I'm absolutely delighted to be involved with this project, because I truly believe, having worked on this in an operational and a field sense, understanding that the only way to finally prevent any accidental or terrorists getting a hold of nuclear weapons is by completely going to zero. It's naive to say, as Ambassador Burt was saying, it would be naive to say that everyone just signs on and believes that this is a good idea. No, it's got to be, it's a process, it's a place to start. You have an objective. It has to be very defined steps to get to that. But we feel so fortunate, everyone here on this panel. This idea first bubbled up, you said 18 months ago, 2 years ago, and here we are on the eve of some incredible momentum from our leadership that we hope that the movie and Global Zero will help accelerate.
Let me just address the issue of moving to a broader negotiation. You know, nuclear proliferation happened because of countries' perceived security concerns. The United States obviously was the first nuclear power. The Cold War was getting underway. The Soviet Union obviously believed that it needed to acquire that capability. Once the United States and Soviet Union acquired that capability, China felt exposed, and it needed to go nuclear. China, in my judgment, was probably the major trigger to a serious Indian nuclear program, and that obviously led to the domino effect of Pakistan and so on. You got to reverse that. The way you reverse that is, first of all, for the two leading nuclear powers to demonstrate their support and to be credible to go down to low enough levels so that other countries are enticed into the process. And ironically, one of the things that will lead, in my judgment, the United States and Russia to go to lower levels is the recognition that if they do go far enough in a follow-on negotiation, say down to 1,000 nuclear warheads or so, they have an opportunity to bring, say, China into the process. That's an incentive for Russia to go down lower if it knows that it has an opportunity to bring China in. China has incentives to come into the process if it thinks that the Russians will go low enough. And once the Chinese are prepared, and I'm not predicting this is going to happen in a couple of weeks or months, the Chinese take their time in evaluating their options, and they're pretty opaque in this process. But we, in this international commission I referred you to earlier that worked on this, we had Chinese participation. So the Chinese are beginning to think about this issue. But once the Chinese are prepared psychologically to come to the negotiating table, then I think you have the Indians. Because if you can tell the Indians, who are a newer nuclear power and are worried about the Chinese, that the Chinese are prepared to think seriously about reductions, then I think politically it becomes easier for the Indians to come in. And needless to say, that then opens the door to Pakistan. So that logic, I think, can be reversed. Just as proliferation led to more nuclear powers, I think the process of going down to zero can not only create this barrier that I was talking about before to creating new nuclear powers, but you create mutual incentives for existing nuclear countries to lower their weapons in a proportionate way, in a verifiable way, and in a technically feasible way down to very low numbers. Hi, Eleanor.
Do you have any coordination with the White House on this, or the other anti-proliferation group, which just had a screening of their film at the White House? And then secondly, what are the factors that suddenly have made this issue rise to the surface, at least in the media's consciousness?
Yeah. Well, as you know, as a former member of the media, I can say the media is always kind of late to the party. So I'm not surprised about that. But yeah, there is obviously a lot of overlap here. I mean, it's in a trivial way. The narrator of the film that was shown in the White House was a guest at our so-called Global Zero Summit earlier this year in Paris, Michael Douglas. But that, as I say, is just more of a celebrity factoid. More importantly, I mean, we tell the White House and the Obama administration what to do all the time, like everybody else in this town. But seriously, we try to be thought leaders. And I think we are ahead of the policy-making curve. We're ahead of the bureaucracy. A lot of the concepts that were outlined in the Nuclear Posture Review, a lot of the goals set for both the New START Treaty and we think in the process will be set for the follow-on agreement, we hope and expect and kind of lobby the administration to adopt. So we're kind of participants in the policy process by virtue of being there. That said, I mean, we're not cheerleaders just for Barack Obama, and we're not prepared to criticize the administration when we think they are taking a wrong turn. But I have to say, to answer your basic question of why is this issue kind of been moved up to the front burner, yes, it's, I think, because of groups like ours, and also the so-called Gang of Four, Henry Kissinger and George Shultz, who, by the way, George Shultz, my old boss in the State Department, participated in our meeting in Paris. The real reason is Barack Obama, the fact, to be honest about it. I mean, here's a guy who talked about this issue when he's running for president. Having been elected, his first meeting with the president of the Russian Federation, Dmitry Medvedev, for the first time got a joint U.S.-Russian statement that supported the goal of eliminating all nuclear weapons. They agreed to get back into a new negotiation, and then Barack Obama, in a historic first, chaired a UN Security Council meeting at the United Nations last fall and got endorsement for the Global Zero concept. He has been proactive on the whole issue of nuclear materials lockdown in the summit that you'll see next week. And so, this is an example where one man with a vision can make a difference. But if I can make an analogy here, it's a little bit like, I think, the healthcare debate, in the sense that there are a lot of obstacles here. And one of the biggest obstacles that Barack Obama faces is his own bureaucracy. an entrenched military establishment that has grown accustomed to deploying and using nuclear weapons, even when increasingly we don't deter with nuclear weapons. We are deterred by nuclear weapons. As more and more weak, small countries get them, our national security is going to suffer, not theirs. But it's difficult to kind of turn this super tanker around, and I think we believe that in that sense Barack Obama needs some allies, and on this issue I think we are prepared to be an ally.